This video is brought to you by Keeps. Stick around to hear more about the discount that they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. Steam has a money laundering problem, and to be fair, they're working very hard on squashing it. I'm not making this video to attack Steam or say they don't do enough. I'm making it because it's incredibly interesting, and I loved researching the topic. To some, Steam is just a video game store, but for others, it's a way to clean dirty money, and not just a small amount. Today, I want to dive into the topic of money laundering on Steam. It's not localized or unique. Games like Fortnite also contend with their platforms being used to clean illegal funds, but for Steam, it seemed like the most interesting story to tell, and that's where I found the bulk of my information. In order to establish how money is laundered through Steam, we first need to know what the actual process looks like for different types of laundering tactics. I will base a great deal of this on the analysis paper Online Money Laundering, a Review of Hackers' Methods, authored by Jean-Louis Richet, an expert on internet security. One of the more common methods of laundering money is called carding. Carding is a simple process by which stolen or falsified credit cards are used to purchase prepaid gift cards, and those gift cards are then used to purchase items. This process can also be done using physical dirty cash at a retail store, but focusing on the digital aspect, stolen credit card information allows for instant transmission anywhere in the world and allows significantly improved freedom for criminals looking to launder their money. Those items, purchased with ill-gotten gains, are then sold at a discount, a significant discount, eventually awarding the fraudster with clean money, which can be recognized by financial institutions and used for everyday purposes. It's a common method, and it will only become more common with time owing to the overabundance of compromised financial information available on the dark web. Quick tangent here, the dark web is not the same as the deep web. The deep web is basically the underside of an iceberg, if you will, where websites exist that are unindexed by major search engines. The process to access this portion of the internet is fairly simple and involves a separate browser, most commonly the Tor browser, as well as knowledge of the address or specific IP you are trying to connect with. There are some indexes emerging, kind of, but for the most part, the deep web is just a bottomless pit of spam, broken links, and unindexed pages. The dark web, on the other hand, is far more sinister. Inside the deep web, often using this fact very specifically to avoid law enforcement agencies and unwanted scrutiny, you can find localized communities that participate in all manner of separate dealings. Funny story, I was basically trying to go into the dark web and find a stolen credit card information seller to showcase that for the video. And then I realized I was way out of my depth, and that by itself, just looking for it, if I were to be successful and find it, was probably illegal, so I stopped immediately. The point is, stolen credit card information is easy to find for those who want to dedicate their time and risk imprisonment. Most adult Americans possess multiple cards, and every year there are literally hundreds of data breaches that expose all types of information to criminals all across the world. Tens of millions of people have had their data hijacked, actually hundreds of millions just within a few of the largest breaches on record recently, and that credit card info can be purchased, exchanged, found, and utilized all over the dark web. That's phase one. Before going further, sponsor. I think today I'll go for the clinical, precise approach on this one. 2 out of 3 men experience hair loss before the age of 35. Most people who watch this channel are men directly in that bracket. Combine those two factors, and we arrive at Keeps. Keeps is a hair loss prevention treatment with more 5-star reviews than any of its current competitors. You can order and get treated directly from your home for a fraction of the cost when compared to other products, and they offer generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss treatments on the entire market. For a limited time, using the link down below in the description, you can get 50% off your first order. Again, that's 50% off your first order of hair loss prevention treatment if you click the link down below in the description. Keeps can help prevent, even reverse, the process of hair loss. And combining that with an audience who is the most susceptible as a demographic when it comes to losing hair, it's a partnership that makes sense. Big thank you to Keeps for sponsoring the channel. So what's phase 2? Phase 2 is where the possibilities get a whole lot wider and the criminals seeking to launder their money have a great deal of options. The point is to find the cheapest method, and by cheapest, I mean that there are usually fees and losses associated with different common tactics that range from as low as 30% to as high as 70, even 90%. Simply put, if you launder $100,000, you could very easily lose half of that money and come out with just $50,000 in bankable proceeds. That's not even a bad rate either, depending on how you view it, and the metrics depend on a variety of different factors: how fast it needs to be, how much money it is, and how thorough/secure you are. Bottom line, laundering dirty money takes time, it takes patience, and it doesn't have a set rate. It's based on a highly variable scale, which can see you earning as much as 70 cents on the dollar or lower than 10. Now we introduce Smurfs. Smurfs are individuals willing or forced, more likely, to execute a large number of transactions and help clean the funds, who are usually paid very little for their time and labor. Smurfs are the ones who will be buying the gift cards, if it happens with any meaningful degree of volume, and they will also then be responsible for switching those cards to actual products, and then switching those products back to cash, most of which goes to the organization who hired them. It's a horrible job and a dangerous practice, but it happens all day, every day, all around the world. The goal is to find something that serves as a decent medium of exchange and has a relative degree of stability as well as ease of access in order to allow a high volume of transactions with quick returns and not too much profit loss on the way back in. That can mean a great number of things, but obviously, for today, that thing is Steam. Steam contains a localized marketplace with huge volume where transactions occur and money flows between parties. Not only that, but the items on Steam, particularly for certain games and communities, retain an incredibly high value and can actually be exchanged for real-world currency quite easily. A great example is CSGO. CSGO, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, contains skins, crates, and keys, and until somewhat recently, keys were bought with real money and used to open the crates, which might contain high-value skins worth far more than the cost of the key or the crate itself. What's most important here is that the keys were bound by a fixed rate acquisition price, which could then be traded between players, and if one was interested, they could be sold via private transaction forums or websites. This meant that you could acquire stolen credit card data, bulk purchase keys, and then find discount buyers for those keys, which could then be transferred between Steam accounts with a payment transaction through PayPal or MoneyGram or crypto, anything really. And even if you did it on the localized Steam marketplace, you could cash that money out by purchasing other items and using a third-party auction site or marketplace like DMarket, thereby cleaning the money. The same thing happens on G2A, a site known for its high volume of fraudulent sellers and stolen credit card purchases, but for today, we're just going to focus on Steam. CSGO may have started as a run-of-the-mill gaming-based economy, but eventually criminals realized just how effective this laundering method could be. What began as a reasonable volume of legitimate key purchases became, in Valve's own words, as reported by the BBC, nearly all key purchases that end up being traded or sold on the marketplace are believed to be fraud-sourced, end quote. That's pretty insane. CSGO is not a small game, not by any stretch, and it has an incredibly high number of daily transactions. Keys provided cybercriminals with a stable product, a high demand, good payout ratios, and an infinite supply, which led them to completely overrun the CSGO trade economy entirely, and resulted in Valve literally shutting down the ability of players to trade keys between accounts. That was their only response. That's how bad it got, and that's just the beginning. Other games, such as Dota 2 or Team Fortress 2, have similar systems, and it's a fairly obvious assumption to make that there is some degree of money laundering taking place in those titles. However, that's not going to be the main focus. Instead, I want to talk about an entirely separate method, which seems to be becoming more and more common as time goes on, and that is direct sales. Steam operates as a wonderful storefront for legitimate game developers, but for more nefarious actors, it can be an easy portal to launder cash. The simple explanation is that when a game is made and sold, Steam takes 30% and the developer gets 70%. Knowing this, why would it not be possible to make some sort of placeholder game or just a terrible, lazy product and sell it at a ridiculous price point, allowing Smurfs to use a carding method and purchase your game, legitimizing the cash they spend? In theory, it should work just fine, and work it does. I want to shout out MMO Fallout here, a publication responsible for covering many of these titles and highlighting the very real possibility that they are used to launder money. One such title is Strike Mole. Now, Strike Mole has been banned from Steam as of the making of this video, and as I stated previously, this is not a video claiming that the phenomenon goes unnoticed or unpunished. It's just interesting to talk about. Strike Mole was quite literally a Unity asset pack that had been compiled and was then being sold for $200. The developer and publisher is Lize, spelt L-I-Z-E, but that sure sounds a lot like the word lies, as in falsified information, and the product existed at that price point for many months. A reasonable explanation for this could be that the game is a troll post or somehow has a mistaken decimal point or two, who knows, but as a counter to that idea, I want to give a few more examples. Example number 2 is Co-Jump Fly. The name makes no sense, the game is horrible and revolves around just, I don't even know, bouncing trash back and forth or something. I could not find a single video of gameplay. I could not find any mention of this game, its release, marketing, nothing online. But in early 2020, it was one of the top 5 best-selling games on all of Steam. I can only assume that that was for a short period of time and it was outpaced by a few more titles rather quickly because it does not make an appearance on the official Steam weekly rankings for that time frame, but a game like that selling that many copies It's a fairly self-explanatory thing. It's also very important to know that this appearance on the top 5 bestseller list came directly after the game had been price hiked from $7 to $80. This game was outselling all other AAA titles, and it did so with no content right after the price was raised and it had been on the platform previously for an extended period of time. It makes no sense. Side note, there was also a really strange offer from the developer that if you bought the game, you could also get a free physical figurine, and you would just have to message them and accept the gift or get your prize. And I really don't want to know what was being sent to people or what that was really about, because a game this suspect, allowing that kind of transaction to occur and having that kind of private exchange of goods after purchasing, there was some really shady stuff going on here. Not done. Another example, Fast Race Game. This one was also banned on Steam and documented by MMO Fallout at the time. I'll link their outlet down below in the description. They do excellent work, check them out. The game is a racing demo, if you can even call it that, with absolutely no content whatsoever, and its price was $700. The game was also fraudulently listing an extremely expensive skin from CSGO as its own market item, and once again, the explanation seems fairly straightforward on that. How about a few more just to really drive home the point, like Lab 3D? Lab 3D was a bare-bones, nothing game published by Tontal with no other games in their library, and listed for nearly $200. What's more interesting is that in response to a forum post, the developer for this game, in Russian, states, quote, "It isn't a joke, let's call it social research. Don't spill the beans to anyone, I can always lower the price." That would seem to indicate, at least in my eyes, that the architect of this particular method, whichever criminal organization it might be tied to, does not want increased attention, and once again, I'll let people draw their own conclusions, but I know damn well what I believe. Moving on, we can look at a pair of games called LLK and Number. These two games were published on the exact same day, one of them by Chenyun0577, and the other by Rongyao0577. Both games cost $200 US, and were banned on the same day as well, some many months later, presumably when Valve cleaned their library of fraudulent money laundering titles. Strangely, and this was just weird, I can't even begin to speculate on what's actually happening with this, strangely, these two games, LLK and Number, were both reviewed by the same Steam creator while they were up. And if we look at the app ID tags in these URLs, we can see that they match the previous app IDs for the now banned games. And that curator is called, quote, "a very powerful country," end quote, and only ever reviews Chinese games. It has over 700 reviews on the account right now, only saying every single time, quote, "game from a certain country," end quote. It's really strange activity, and I don't even know what to make of it. Whether or not these products were used to clean dirty money and whether or not they persisted long enough to accomplish that goal is unknown. From time to time, a highly priced, non-existent, or asset pack style game makes it to the Steam bestseller list, indicating that too much volume might have been funneled through it accidentally. But one thing is clear. Cybercriminals absolutely know about gaming. They understand how it can be used. They take advantage of that framework in titles like World of Warcraft very often to launder their funds, as well as Fortnite, through Epic Games, and many more, with a verified instance in which they overran the economy of a Steam game, CSGO, one of the largest Steam games, to such an extreme degree, all peer-to-peer trading of their chosen product had to be disabled. During the pursuit and capture of El Chapo, one of the most prominent criminals and cartel leaders in human history, law enforcement agencies were forced to track down money transfers and deconstruct the framework by which funds were carried across borders. Cartels use a myriad of different techniques, some as simple as physically concealing the money in trucks to export or depositing it into bank accounts at a sum of less than $10,000 and then sending via wire transfer. Others, however, are quite complex and involve the usage of intermediary online brokers who are either willing participants or, most importantly, unaware that these activities are taking place. An example of swapping cash for commodities and then transferring it would be the Sinaloa cartel using dozens of stores in the LA fashion district to purchase expensive clothes and ship them back across the border to ultimately be resold. Going from cash to product to pesos, thus cleaning the money, is what they are looking for, and logically, in a world where digital assets are becoming more and more common each and every day, finding a way to convert cash to some form of online commodity or item, and then a way to convert it directly into a localized currency, is going to be highly sought after. This might present a problem for the video because almost all of these suspected money laundering games are produced in China, but more recently, to show an example of why this might simply be a manifestation of outsourcing, if you will, federal officers were contacted about teenagers in Equatorial Guinea, a small country in Africa, who were driving Maseratis and Ferraris on dirt roads. This was a financial anomaly that had no explanation. Really, it didn't, until it was discovered that both the Sinaloa and the Colombian Medellin cartel had begun using the country as a money laundering gateway on their way to Europe. Since there was such a large amount of money flowing through this relatively poor area, various side effects of that became incredibly obvious very quickly. The reason behind this particular choice was most likely because of the native language, Spanish instead of French or Portuguese, but there is absolutely no reason why language barriers cannot be overcome in a rising digital age of online transactions and binary coded commodities. I say this not to somehow claim that these particular entities are behind the specific games that I named in this video. I say this to establish that many large criminal enterprises utilize every single avenue that they can find, prioritizing faster, more anonymous methods with better obfuscation. Having your entire money laundering pipeline hinge on a single method, unless that method is a cash-rich business like a movie theater or an arcade chain, it's not only risky, it is untenable. As a platform, Steam presents a fast, relatively easy digital method of laundering money, and that will undoubtedly be added to the portfolio of many more groups in the future. Steam is used to launder money. It has been, and it will be again, but as long as Valve continues to ban these parties whenever they are discovered, they will protect their platform from greater consequences. One final time, this isn't an attack on Steam. It's an exploration of how gaming marketplaces are being used actively by cybercriminals to launder money right alongside the broader video game audience. And I just thought it was an interesting topic to discuss. It's a break from some of the other things I've been wrapped up in recently, too much so, if I might say, and it was just really fun to learn about. That's it. If you want support, there are links down below, primarily Odyssey, which is a YouTube platform alternative, also Locals, $5 a month to support the channel. You get completely ad-free videos in the audio podcast format on Locals as well. Keeps, they support the channel, so please support them. Another gaming YouTuber to check out, merch, social media, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.